Okay.
In completing and looking for that electrical ground wire to a water pipe, here it is coming across that sill plate as we mentioned back from the electrical box. So she is grounded to the sewer pipe. This is your water meter. Basically, this here shuts off. This controls your water to the flow to the house. This is your main water shut off. This here controls your faucet to the exterior of the house. So that's the first thing we look for. Obviously, this is taken apart because the water is not functioning here now. But we would look at it's copper in and copper through the house. That we normally go to, again, in completing the systems, I'm going to take a look at the furnace. I'm going to remove the front panels, and normally I would start the furnace, make it run, make it operate, make sure she's not cycling, make sure there's no rust in the intake, inspect the ribbon burners, check for gas leaks with a little meter, and just kind of give it a tertiary look from that end. Also, I would take the bottom panel off to the blower door to check the blower compartment. Yeah, that's I'm going to take that off now, or you want me to? Now we have both the manifold compartment open and the blower compartment panels off. We basically look at the ribbon burners that are up in here to see if there's any accumulation of rust and more or less debris. Obviously there is some debris, minor rust, again comparing for the amount of moisture that's in the basement. Again, the age of this thing is this guy's the original also, so we're looking in that fashion. I also check the amount of thermal BTUs that you have in there. We have some aluminum foil insulation around the draft assist fan. I don't know why that's there. We normally don't see that, so I would have that removed. And I would start it up, make sure that the unit is operating, not recycling, and in the case like this, I would call for, due to the age, I would call for it to be cleaned and serviced. The other thing, since it's a forced air system, this is your return duct, and basically all air through the house returns this way, both in the heating mode and in the air conditioning mode. So the other thing we check for is always the clarity and the competence of the filter. This filter is extremely filthy, as you can see, so it hasn't been changed in a while. It doesn't fit right. It's not the wrong size, and it's there's an airflow arrow on these things that will tell you which way to install it. The airflow comes down here. I normally write it on here for the client. Put an arrow for the airflow pointing inward, and I think this was, yeah, the metal should always be to the outside there. I'll try to find that airflow arrow for you in here. Of course, today we won't have one. But as I was mentioning, the majority of them do have airflow. Here we go, airflow in, and this is the way she should be installed, okay? And I would normally write that information on there. This is a 16 by 25. You probably need something just a little bit shorter than that for the airflow. It's important to change these every 30 days, or we recommend the 90-day allergen, especially moving into a new house. We recommend the allergen type 3M filters. When we have this off, obviously the whole system will not operate when we have this lower panel off, because there is a safety switch, which I'll get to show you in a second once I get this back in.
Okay.
When changing that filter, we usually recommend shutting the furnace off. Obviously, I knew the furnace was off anyhow. Because of the safety switch, in the air conditioning mode, if you're attempting to put that lower panel on by toggling that safety switch when you're moving that panel around to make it seat properly, what's going to happen is you will toggle the compressor unit and possibility of damaging it. So make sure, we say, every time you change the filter, shut it off, shut the safety switch off to ensure that there's no damage in that position. So once we have the filter back in, we will close this back up. Obviously we have it running. I leave it running for a while and leave this top door panel open.
All right.
To continue on the inspection, we would, after we're satisfied with the functioning in the heating mode, we would then have the system cool down and then operate it in the air conditioning mode. Again, the airflow is the same in both directions. However, you're not working with gas now, you're working with electricity, and the refrigerant that comes into this A coil that sits on this top plenum right here and works in conjunction with that compressor we looked on the outside. Basically, the airflow goes through, returns from the house up over the A coil and to the supply of the house. The warm air hits that cold refrigerant line and basically produces condensation. And this is your condensate drip line that will go to a pump that you usually pick up at Home Depot or Lowe's or any place like that. And that should be normally entered right along this refrigerant line and discharged to the outside. Here, obviously, we have some issues that need to be fixed up with it. So that's some of the things that we look for and to make sure that that's in place. We recognize on this furnace too, observed, is a humidifier, and it's plugged into the back of the supply of the unit. We'll go around to the other side. This is the humidistat. We set the amount of humidity for the house is controlled right here. So if we walk around to this side, we'll find it on the back end, okay, of the unit. This usually should be serviced and certified. There's a water supply that comes along here. See this? And usually is hooked onto a supply pipe with a T-line right here. And it fills with water, and this turns and adds some humidity to the air in the heat mode. In the air conditioning mode, this absolutely should be shut down and not operating. It should have a summer switch and a winter switch for it, okay? The next part of the inspection is for the water lines and the water heater. This is a GE Smart water heater. It's approximately 5 years old. The design life on these are 12 to 15 years. And basically, inside a house, inside of a basement, we normally don't recommend, especially the new ones, we don't recommend wrapping them. However, one of the things that is needed is a high temperature pressure relief valve to be extended within 6 inches from the floor. And that's just in case this thing does go, it blows hot steam, and if someone's bending over looking, they can burn themselves and things of that nature. That's usually a safety issue. We see it from time to time, but it's no big deal to install one. PVC line down, not a problem, okay? We inspect in here to make sure that we have the proper ventilation. In reality, this should be over above the furnace. It should sit on top. In this case, it's tilted a little bit improperly, so we would also make a note of that the discharge for the carbon, for the gas carbon monoxide is below the furnaces, but we see this constantly, and we would make mention to it, okay? This is should be covered down, and it's making a quick bend without having at least a little bit longer of a run, but again, for its location, it's the best that we can do with it. So it's maybe not to the T of the standards of today, but it's certainly functional. We have several unsecured pipes here, copper piping. We always like to see them strapped and secured. There's not too much rust on this. There's a little bit, again, I would say predominantly from the humidity in the room. So, and we would make sure that this thing would be operating. We would turn the temperature up and down on it to make sure she fires up and things of that nature. Good. This here is the discharge for basically your furnace in the operating in the heat mode, and also for your water heater. This here caulking and gooking that they have around is a result of not having a cap on, and basically there's deterioration of the material around it. So it's not, again, it's not as bad as I thought it would be. So that's something that we would look at to make sure. You see some rust along the edges here, and that's basically because there's no water cover on the exterior that we talked about earlier. So this would have to be filled up properly. Okay, this is a little bit beat up. We would maybe say recommend this because we don't want carbon monoxide slip to the basement area. We're going to just this fluoride here, so I'm sure it's saturated underneath. This kind of mold, well, the first thing I would recommend is that you do a mold test. I mean, we know it's mold. What we want to find out, though, with in a different fashion, if it's toxic, we do the analysis for us, and they would send it back, and they would speak